The Whispering Forest. In the heart of the dense Whispering Forest, nestled between the jagged peaks of the Black Mountains, lay the small, isolated village of Eldermoor. The villagers lived a simple, peaceful life, sustained by farming, hunting, and trading with the neighboring towns. Eldermoor was surrounded by ancient trees that seemed to whisper in the wind, telling tales of long-forgotten times. The villagers believed these whispers were the voices of the forest spirits, guardians of the land. However, hidden within these whispers was a darker legend that was rarely spoken of, a legend of a terrifying beast that prowled the depths of the forest. Chapter 1: The Disappearance. One chilly autumn evening, young Matthew went missing. He had been playing near the edge of the forest with his friends, chasing fireflies as the sun dipped below the horizon. When it was time to return home, Matthew was nowhere to be found. His mother, Clara, frantic with worry, rallied the villagers for a search. They combed the forest, calling out his name, but their efforts were in vain. Matthew had vanished without a trace. The elders of the village exchanged worried glances, their minds drifting to the old legend: the beast of the Whispering Forest had returned. Chapter 2: The Legend Unveiled. The village elder, a wise woman named Agnes, gathered the villagers in the town square. Her voice trembled as she recounted the old tale. Long ago, the forest had been home to a monstrous beast, a creature born of dark magic and ancient curses. This beast, known as the Wendigo, was said to have the body of a giant, emaciated deer with long, skeletal limbs and a face twisted in perpetual agony. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and its breath was said to freeze the very soul. The Wendigo was a creature of insatiable hunger, preying on those who dared to venture too deep into its domain. It was a manifestation of greed and gluttony, cursed to forever wander the forest in search of its next meal. The villagers had lived in fear of the Wendigo for generations, until a brave hunter named Elias had supposedly slain it, ending its reign of terror. But now, it seemed, the beast had returned. Chapter 3: The Hunter's Descent. Determined to save her son and protect her village, Clara sought the help of Elias's descendant, a reclusive hunter named Rowan. Rowan had inherited his ancestors' skills and knowledge, but he was a solitary man, living on the outskirts of Eldermoor. Clara found him in his cabin, sharpening his weapons. "Rowan," she pleaded, "my son is missing. The villagers believe the Wendigo has returned. I need your help." Rowan's eyes, hardened by years of solitude and loss, softened at Clara's words. He agreed to help, driven by a sense of duty and a desire to redeem his family's name. Together, they ventured into the forest, armed with weapons and guided by Rowan's knowledge of the land. Chapter 4: The Forest's Secrets. As they delved deeper into the forest, the whispers grew louder, almost deafening. The trees seemed to close in around them, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Rowan led the way, his senses alert to every sound and movement. They came across signs of the Wendigo's presence: clawed marks on tree trunks, half-eaten carcasses of animals, and the unmistakable stench of decay. One night, as they camped near a small clearing, Clara awoke to find Rowan staring into the darkness, his face pale. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. Clara strained her ears and heard it, a low, mournful wail that sent chills down her spine. It was the Wendigo's call, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Chapter 5: The Confrontation. Determined to end the beast's reign of terror, Rowan and Clara pressed on. They followed the wail to a cave hidden deep within the forest. The entrance was adorned with bones and twisted branches, a macabre display of the Wendigo's power. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of rot, and the walls were slick with a dark, viscous substance. They ventured deeper into the cave, their torches casting eerie shadows on the walls. Suddenly, they came face to face with the Wendigo. It was even more terrifying than the legends had described, towering over them, its eyes glowing with malevolence, and its body a grotesque parody of life. The beast let out a roar that echoed through the cave, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Rowan raised his bow, aiming for the Wendigo's heart. "Stay behind me," he told Clara, his voice steady. He released the arrow, and it flew true, piercing the beast's chest. The Wendigo let out a blood-curdling scream, but instead of falling, it charged at them with renewed fury. Chapter 6: The Battle for Survival. Rowan and Clara fought desperately against the Wendigo. Rowan's arrows seemed to slow it down, but the beast's strength and speed were overwhelming. Clara, armed with a dagger, struck at the Wendigo whenever she could, but it was like fighting a nightmare come to life. Just as it seemed they were about to be overpowered, Clara remembered an old incantation Agnes had taught her. She began to chant, her voice rising above the chaos. The Wendigo recoiled, its movements becoming sluggish. Rowan, seizing the opportunity, plunged his hunting knife into the beast's heart. The Wendigo let out one final, agonized wail before collapsing to the ground. Chapter 7: The Aftermath. With the Wendigo defeated, the cave began to collapse. Rowan and Clara barely made it out in time, the entrance sealing behind them. The forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the whispers fading into a gentle breeze. Returning to Eldermoor, they were hailed as heroes. Matthew was found, traumatized but alive, hidden in a small alcove within the cave. The villagers celebrated their victory, but they knew that the forest would always hold its secrets. Chapter 8: The Legacy. Years passed, and Eldermoor thrived once more. The legend of the Wendigo became a tale of courage and survival, passed down through generations. Rowan and Clara remained close, bound by their shared ordeal. Rowan continued to protect the village, teaching others the skills needed to survive in the forest. The Wendigo's cave became a place of reverence, a reminder of the darkness that had once threatened their home. And though the forest still whispered its ancient secrets, the villagers knew that as long as they remained vigilant and united, they could face whatever horrors lay within the shadows. Chapter 10: The Return of the Dark. One particularly cold winter, the villagers began to disappear again, one by one. The elders were reminded of the old curse and whispered that perhaps the Wendigo had not been alone. Rowan, now regarded as the village's protector, was called upon to investigate once more. He delved deep into ancient texts and spoke to the forest spirits through Agnes's old rituals. The spirits revealed that the Wendigo was but a servant to a greater evil, an ancient entity known as the Shadow King. This malevolent force had been lying dormant, waiting for its servant to weaken the barrier between the worlds. Chapter 11: The Gathering Storm. Realizing the gravity of the threat, Rowan and Clara began to prepare the village for the inevitable confrontation. Rowan taught the villagers how to defend themselves and crafted weapons imbued with protective charms. Clara, now a respected healer and mystic, brewed potions and performed rituals to strengthen the village's defenses. The forest grew darker and more sinister with each passing day, the very air thick with the promise of impending doom. Strange creatures, twisted by dark magic, began to emerge from the depths of the forest, testing the village's defenses and resolve. Chapter 12: The Final Battle. One moonless night, the Shadow King emerged from the forest, a towering figure of pure darkness, eyes burning with a malevolent light. Rowan, Clara, and the villagers stood ready, their weapons and spirits fortified. The battle was fierce and brutal, the Shadow King's power immense. The ground shook with each clash, and the air crackled with dark energy. Rowan, wielding the silver dagger that had once defeated the Wendigo, fought valiantly against the Shadow King. Clara chanted powerful incantations, creating protective barriers and healing the wounded. The villagers, inspired by their leader's courage, fought with everything they had. As dawn approached, Rowan and Clara realized that to defeat the Shadow King, they would need to combine their strengths and perform an ancient ritual that Agnes had once hinted at. It required a great sacrifice, the ultimate price to banish the dark entity forever. Chapter 13: The Sacrifice. In the final moments of the battle, Rowan and Clara, standing side by side, began the ritual. Their voices merged into a powerful chant, calling upon the spirits of the forest and the ancient magic that had protected Eldermoor for centuries. The ground beneath them glowed with a brilliant light, forming a circle that trapped the Shadow King. As the ritual reached its climax, Rowan realized that the ultimate sacrifice required his life. He looked at Clara, who nodded through her tears, understanding the necessity. With a final, heartfelt goodbye, Rowan stepped into the circle, his body becoming a conduit for the ancient magic. The light intensified, blinding and purifying. The Shadow King let out a deafening scream as it was pulled into the light, its dark essence disintegrating. The forest, for the first time in ages, was silent and still. Chapter 14: The Dawn of a New Era. Rowan's sacrifice was not in vain. The village of Eldermoor was safe, and the Whispering Forest was free from the dark curse that had plagued it for so long. Clara, heartbroken but resolute, continued to lead the village, ensuring that Rowan's legacy lived on. The villagers erected a monument in Rowan's honor, a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring spirit of humanity. The Whispering Forest, now a place of peace and magic, became a sanctuary for those who sought wisdom and solace. Generations later, the tale of Rowan and Clara, the Wendigo, and the Shadow King became a legend told to children around campfires. The Whispering Forest, ever vibrant and mysterious, whispered stories of bravery and sacrifice to those who listened. The villagers of Eldermoor, guided by the memories of their ancestors, lived in harmony with the forest, honoring the spirits and protecting their home from any darkness that dared to emerge. And so, the legacy of Rowan and Clara endured, a testament to the power of courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding human spirit in the face of unimaginable terror.
Don't forget to subscribe.